Welcome back to the Minutes to Win podcast. We got Jimmy Cannon on here. He teaches people how to talk. And he's a former musician. It's really interesting. Have you thought about it that sometimes you're talking like a jazz musician, but the other person's talking like a punk rock artist? How do you work that out? And how do you communicate effectively and confidently while humbly? Jimmy's a master, and we have a great conversation. I think you're going to join it. Some good tips here. Let's dive in. Jimmy, welcome to the show. And I'm really glad to have you on because you're an expert on speaking, but it sounds like you not only talk about from a platform, but hey, let's just how we're talking together and as a leader or as somebody on a team, or it spills over into personal life. But you said something very interesting in the stuff you sent me, and that was that you teach people to speak kind of the way a musician varies a melody to engage an audience. And you specifically said a jazz musician. So I don't know whether you want to explain that a little bit, but that struck me as just like, yeah, jazz musician. I'm not really into jazz, but sometimes I hear jazz, I'm like, oh, wow. And I just want to sit down and listen.
Amazing. Hi, David, thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast. Amazing. And it's great to speak to you. Already I'm having fun. I know we've spoken a little bit before the show started, so that's great. Yeah, so I have been trying to build a bridge between what I've, in my past life as a jazz singer or saxophonist as well, a jazz musician, and what I do now. So, which is public speaking coaching, or predominantly voice coaching, communication coaching, or anxiety, or building resistance to anxiety. And the link, to me, I've always thought there's got to be a link, and the more I coach, the more I realize there is a link, which is this. And there's loads of things. So, for instance, phrasing, space, pause, listening, just thinking about the style of music that we're playing. Are we using the same hymn sheet? Are we speaking the same language? Are we using that language? Are we understanding the language? Not necessarily literally, but are we? So musicians use a language, and they communicate through that language, and that's the harmony or the harmonic structure of music, or the melodic structure of music. So thinking about for instance, if you're improvising, you're generally improvising around both the melody and the harmony. So those ideas can be communicated. And in a jazz quartet, for instance, everybody's listening to each other. So the sax player's listening to what the piano's playing and vice versa, and the drummer's listening to what the bass player. Generally, the drummer's listening to what the pianist is doing, because actually what the piano player is doing should be mimics or referenced on the snare drum, on the left hand, and the right hand with the right. Is this going out of video? I ought to be careful. This or just audio?
Yeah, most people listen. But we do put it out on video. But what you're saying is fascinating. Even having the concentration level to listen to a pianist and try to take your left hand and do something to support that, and your right hand's doing what's more on the music sheet or something.
Yeah, exactly. So the role of the drummer, for instance, is that the right cymbal, or the right hand, is communicating with the bass directly, and the left hand's communicating with the piano, and the bass drum is accenting some ideas, rhythmic ideas that maybe the singer or the saxophone player has in the phrasing that he or she's doing. And then the hi-hat is normally on the 2 and the 4 if it's swing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, sting, 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 so all of this, and not only that, the drummer's thinking, well, I also should be listening to the song. I should be listening to the lyrics and the intention of the words and the vibe and the story.
So my older brother was a musician, and I just regrettably never had the patience to go through the initial phase where you develop some type of skill to get where you want to go. And you have just given me a totally different comprehension of a drummer. I mean, I've always appreciated drums, but I've always, I hate to say this, terrible bias, but I've always thought, well, the drum's probably the easiest thing up there, or unless you're playing bass guitar and you're just, but now that now I'm just thinking, wow, I totally got it wrong. everything's probably very complicated when you talk about being
I think
part of a band.
apparently there's more jokes about drummers than there are anything else in the world. I'm not sure. There is that side of it as well. There are some drummers that are not thinking about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you brought up the importance of tone, which I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about. And I didn't think about it when I saw your stuff. But people ask me, oh, do you prefer Dave or David? And I say, oh, I don't care. You can call me Dave, David, Russ, Russell, Coach. I only care about your tone of voice. And I didn't even strike me when I was thinking about it. But tone of voice is so
Tell me about
important
so
in communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt, but that's really interesting for me. What that's really interesting. To tell me, embellish that for me, expand on that. What do you mean when you say to people, I just care about the tone of your voice? What do you mean by that?
Well, so if you're talking to me in a condescending tone, then that's offensive. And if you're yelling at me or getting mad at me, then that's like, I don't typically have a short temper with that. I have a short temper if you go after my kids or my wife, my grandkids, something like that. Or you accuse me of lacking integrity when I just made a mistake. Or you didn't understand something. If you question my integrity and there's no basis for it, then I may have to catch myself a little bit. But it's more of a protection thing than it is. But otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. It's what I have. Occasionally I have a client that is oblivious to their tone of voice, as in it's quite a toxic or negative tone of voice, a sound, and it has a detrimental effect on team workers, etc. In the office. So that is something that they've been told, perhaps, or they're at least, HR or somebody down the line has said, look, I think you need to tone down your voice because it can come across whatever it might be. So that's definitely something that I help people with to sort of soften their tone and to use more different areas of resonance because the intention is not always negative. The intention is just in their head that the actual intention can be sometimes different to the result of that or the actual speech or the sound of the voice that comes out.
And I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times does the tone come from their life experience? I mean, how their parents talk to one another or talk to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so fascinated with this. I mean, I feel like I need another lifetime to get into all this, really, But in fact, that's probably the reason I started this, because we are so heavily judged on how we speak, our accent. As soon as we meet somebody, I don't know about it, I'm not so sure about the States, but certainly in the UK, as soon as someone starts, if they've got a particular accent, we compartmentalize them into a certain place in our heads, whatever that might be. It's normally negative, unfortunately. It's, and someone can speak, oh, hello, lovely to meet you. Are you coming for tea? If they could speak like that, or they could speak like that, come from South London, all right, how you doing? Well, and they might be a really, really nice person. They might be an expert in their field. They might be someone that can really help you and mentor you. But because you've judged them, or somebody's judged them at some point in their lives, it's got a detrimental effect for everyone concerned. So accent, tone of voice, intention of voice is really, really important. I've only just realized that, David.
Well, talk to me about it. You just said a term that I've never thought of before, intention of voice.
Yeah.
Talk about that and what does that mean? Where does that come from? How do we work on that?
Okay, so how we work? Okay, so intention of voice is we're not necessarily in control of what comes out of our mouth, right? So the intention...
We're supposed to be.
We're supposed to be. Exactly. But we're not necessarily in control.
Yeah.
And that is guided by lots of factors, our perception of ourselves, the environment that we're in, the acoustic environment that we're in. So now you and I are speaking virtually. There's a microphone it's picking up my sound. It's being manipulated from analog to digital back to analog again. That's already changed. So your perception of how my tone of voice, I actually sound like this, is very different, perhaps, to if we were if we were facing each other in the room. That might be different. So there's lots of cues. There's verbal, lots of verbal cues, non-verbal cues that we are constantly as human beings analyzing all the time. Facial expressions, pauses, my inflections in my voice, my tone of voice. Yeah. I'm quite tired at the moment. It's quite late here. It's 7 in the evening. It's been a long day, so my voice is quite tired, and therefore I'm going into my creak, which is kind of down there quite a lot, and that might signal to you maybe that I'm lacking in energy or passion. So I'm kind of going around the houses here, but so the intention might be there cognitively, but what comes out is different, perhaps, and that's what I help people do, is to connect more effectively their voice to what they intend to deliver in their message.
Interesting. I can see how that'd be really important. How about an example? How about a story of somebody that you worked with where their intentions were good, but their delivery was...
Yeah, okay. So I can't tell you who or what, but I had a client who was the CFO, is now the CEO of a London airport. I can't tell you which one, but he really high up, and he started right at the bottom. I can't actually give you much detail, but worked his way up the ranks.
Yeah.
His voice was, and to a degree still is, because we can't change a huge amount about how we sound and, the history and our culture, etc., our heritage. The voice is, to an extent, is the voice that we have is what we have. We can manipulate it and we can change it. And it's more about, again, and I would say, just quickly going back, the attention is more psychological. So you can change that intention, which is a mindset, right? And that's what I'm sort of suggesting. But talking about him, he would speak very, very, very quickly. I mean, really, really quickly. And because he didn't have time and everything had to be really quick. And he just felt that he wasn't communicating with certain groups of people, certain levels of people within the business in the most empathic way that he could. He didn't have the patience, and it came out in his voice. So I use breathing techniques to help to pause, to create more silence, different tonalities. And the other thing, he's had quite a monotone voice. So monotone and very quick. So I'll give an example. He would speak very much like that, and he's, hi Jimmy, yeah, great, I'm really good, how are you? Very good, very good, very good. Yeah, really busy day. Good to see you. I haven't had much time to practice, but I'm going to give it a go probably next week. I'm going on holiday. In fact, I'm going on holiday in a couple of weeks. We're going to Jamaica, and we're going to spend a couple of weeks there. So I'm probably going to have time to do that in between sunbathing and having dinner. And if my wife lets me, I'll do some practice. Right? That was that. That's what his voice. I'm exaggerating slightly, but that's what his voice is like. Yeah. So we had that's years of habitual. Where that's come from, I can't go into that, but it's lots of barriers and things stopping him from slowing down and feeling authoritative about. He suffered from imposter syndrome because he felt that he didn't deserve to be where he was, and he was also thinking about moving jobs and maybe retiring. And actually, I'm really, really chuffed. I'm really proud. Didn't do all of it myself, but he ended up being promoted, and he's now the CEO of the whole company, which is amazing. And I was very privileged to work with him. But we worked on breathing, varying his tone, varying his pitch, varying his dynamics when he speaks. And so it makes him... Yeah, go on, sorry.
One of the things that interests me often when I'm speaking with people like yourself that are helping people move from a point A to a point B, is what triggered him to make the decision that this isn't working, I need to do something, and he actually owned it. I mean, there must have been a period of time, or there could have been a period of time where he went through his career, his life, where he just blamed it on other people. They get it, they're not whatever. But what happened that was that moment?
So for him, there was somebody else that was in the background. and they were, I can't go into details, but they were very toxic. They were very confident, but toxic in a way. And that's quite a heavy word to use, I know, but it did seem that. And they were very confident. Their voice was confident. They looked confident. They sounded confident. And he felt very threatened. Not only the fact that so this chap had come through the correct, as he said, inverted commas, ranks. You know, that he came through Oxbridge and he was trained and he came through the right family. And my chap didn't come from the right family and just worked from the bottom and all the way up over 30 years. And so he felt very threatened with this other guy who basically thought he was going to take his job. And they didn't see eye to eye, and it was a lot of friction. So he wanted to be able to communicate more effectively mainly with this one guy, but also with the other staff as well. Mm-hmm. And that was his challenge. So the trigger for him was that one toxic person within that team. It's also very common that it's either somebody's perception of themselves, which is normally unfounded. So when people say, "Oh, I hate my voice. I hate the sound of my voice. It's just monotone. It's terrible. It's really weak." It's invariably not them. It's not. It's up here, psychological. Yeah. But then sometimes I'll have a client that says, "I've been told that my voice is monotone and I need to deliver pitches to the founders or the investors or whatever. And therefore they got to sort it out. And they've been told they've got to sort it out."
It's very interesting that he was in that situation and he figured out, or someone gave him some input where he needed to work on his communication skills.
Yeah.
Versus, well, you need to learn how to be a better, stronger leader, or you need to go to a gym to beef up. So if this guy's threatening you, you're not worried about it. Or you need to work on that negativity committee in your brain that's beating you up and saying you're not good enough, you're a loser, he's going to take your job.
So part of that work is not only on the voice. So I studied acceptance and commitment therapy as a behavioral therapist. So cut a very long story short. And so part of that is the behavioral side of that, which is avoidance.
Yeah.
Right? So he's been avoiding talking to this chap. He's been avoiding meetings. He's been not speaking up when he feels that he wants to speak up because he knows that he's not going to be listened to in the way that he wants to be listened to. Yeah. So that's the important thing for him, is that he wants to be listened to. It's powerful, isn't it? It's very powerful, yeah.
It is. It is, but it's also powerful that he figured that out versus another avenue. And I mean, kudos to him, how he climbed up the ranks and didn't do it through privilege. He did it through performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely kudos. And I think also the other thing is that, you know, he was also having to do a lot of press stuff as well. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more going on. There's that in relationship. There's changing in leadership. There's a lot of press stuff going on. Yeah. There's all, you know, you can imagine an airport. It's just constant firefighting, literally all the time, and like you know, any large business. But it's just constant struggle, and he just felt. And it's interesting, and I agree. I didn't think that when I started what I do, I didn't think that there would be many people I could work with, because when I started, I thought I'd be working with people that just wanted to improve their game or up their game and just project their voice better. Yeah. Actually, what's transpired is people coming to me with a feeling of anxiety about their voice or how they come across, or that they're not being taken seriously, or whatever it might be, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, that type of thing. And that's where I found a middle ground or a balance with what I studied and what I coach and what I do. So actually, I would agree with you. Why would you go straight to the voice? I would argue, I'm slightly biased, but I would argue that everything is within the voice. This is our one mode of communication that we and I would also argue that we're going to have to use it more effectively as AI comes in, because there's going to be less people that can communicate effectively.
And AI doesn't, at least today, and it's getting better all the time, surprisingly fast.
It's ridiculous.
But it does not, it usually uses too much words or goes in the wrong direction. It's still making some errors, but it is learning very quickly. But I agree with you. Also, one of the things that I teach some of my people that I coach, or just people I work with, is, okay, you're going to this situation. You have to make a choice. Are you going to choose the relationship and you come out of this where the relationship's the same, it's just as good or it's better, or are you going to choose to win? Because you may not get both.
Yeah.
So what are you going to choose?
That's amazing. That's so powerful. A choice, making a choice. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of so much of that is how you're going to communicate with the other person.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely on target. And so that's interesting. Whether the person is hard driving type A, or whether the person is very sensitive based on what they've been through in life. Like you brought up some attributes of that. Very interesting. And now you have the Canon method.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So tell us about the Canon.
Well, that will do. It's very similar. It's what we've been talking about. It's really a holistic approach. It's three things. So I help people improve their sound of their voice. And so voice, and I help people with their presence. So that's really about verbal and non-verbal and body alignment and presence and, creating that intention through the words, the right intention through the words, and also confidence as well. So I use mainly my voice coaching for the voice, but there's also acceptance and commitment therapy, which is creating psychological flexibility based on commitment to values, which is very similar to you with what you do. I think we cross paths, lots of leadership coaches, etc., cross paths in a peripheral manner as well, in that the same type of method or approach would be when you said, what choice are you going to make? My suggestion would be similar, which would be, are you willing to move towards, which path are you willing to move towards based on what your values are? Because if your values are, I deserve to be at the forefront of this company, then I'm going to tackle that issue that I've got with this partner or my co-worker, because it's important to me that I achieve what I've set out to achieve. That could be his value, perhaps. So we work on that, and we work on how he's going to deliver that message through his voice.
Interesting. I'm sure you're aware of it. There was a study done a long time ago about communication and what percentage was body language, what percentage was tone of voice, and what percentage was the actual words. I think the actual words were like 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was it?
I think it was 33 something percent, which is non-verbal, which is a lot, wasn't it? And tone of voice was higher than the words. I can't remember what the exact.
Yeah, physical was actually the biggest.
Yeah, it's the biggest, largest. Yeah.
Physical was like 50 some odd, 50.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 50. I don't know. It was 50 some odd percent, and then it was 30 some odd percent was tone of voice.
Yeah.
And you're hitting on all those things. And then probably as a spillover, you're touching on the words they're using. But it's not a main focus. It doesn't sound
not a main focus for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel qualified to do so. And there are there's hundreds and thousands of public speaking coaches that do content, but I don't do the content, mainly because I don't know what most of the people I'm coaching are talking about in there. So I guess a lot of it's very academic stuff, not necessarily with this chap I'm talking about. That was very much of a dialogue situation. But so for instance, I literally, before our podcast, I've got a client who she's just done her PhD. She's starting internship. She's studying to be a doctor, but in dermatology. So we're practicing her presentation and her pitch for internship and interviews after that. And I have no idea what she's talking about, but it doesn't really matter. It's about how she's delivering, because she feels anxious and she feels that her voice is monotone. She's also from California, actually, funny enough. So there's a lot of upspeak going on, which you don't have at all.
What do you mean upspeak?
What do I mean, upspeak?
Yeah. What is upspeak?
You don't know what upspeak is?
No.
Are you sure? Did I fool you there?
Yeah. I hope the audience caught it. Well,
Yeah. No,
audience should typically catch it.
So it's when you rise in pitch. When you rise in pitch, and if it's all the time, it's very indicative with Australians and possibly Californians as well. So it's sort of indicative with that culture or that part of the world. So the problem with it is that it's perceived as detrimental to your credibility. So if you're not resolving and you're not going down in pitch as you're speaking, not all the time, but most of the time, if you want to make a point, then you finish the sentence on a descending pitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So talk to me about that rhythm, that flow of how, and maybe it varies based on the scenario.
Sure. Well, okay. So rhythm and flow, I, again, use the analogy of music and phrasing and space. So silence is incredibly important. And most people that come to me are speaking far too quickly. They're not breathing. They're using their upper chest breath. If they're anxious, they're speaking even quicker. And they're not allowing their thoughts to process. So particularly very academic people are in, IT, software industries, their thought process is just completely ahead of them. So their voice is literally not able to catch up with their thoughts. So they start mumbling, they start stuttering, they speak very quickly, and they can't get out what they want to get out. So phrasing-wise, if you take a pause, quite simply using a breath, for less than, I think there's some, I know I get the idea that you like stats, so I think it's 5.6%. If you pause for more than 5.6%, people might think that you're having a cardiac arrest. If it's under that 5.6%, it's just about okay. So pausing is a really, really effective tool to use to give credibility at the beginning of a pitch or presentation. So someone's asking you a question, to say, there's a very famous Steve Jobs, video back in 96, I think it is, of somebody asks him a very, very controversial question, and quite aggressively, passive-aggressive controversial question. And I think it was something like, what have you done for the last 7 years? And two questions in one. And I think it was 12 seconds that he didn't answer for. He took 12 seconds, took a sip of water, which is a grounding technique. Whether he's aware of that or not, I don't know. But, he unscrewed the water. I won't do it visually now, because it took 12 seconds to unscrew the lid, take a sip of water, walk around a little bit, think about it, process the question that's just been asked, and then give the answer. It's incredibly powerful.
It's very interesting that you give that as an example. It's an example I'm not familiar with. But because Jobs was such a hard-charging guy, was that when he came back to take over Apple again? Okay.
It was so before that I heard,
Yeah, so he had been through darkness. He had been through tough times.
Yeah.
And come out stronger. Yeah, 10 years earlier, I get the impression he wouldn't have taken those 12 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're absolutely right.
So that's very interesting. So you've talked about people who, like you have, that based on anxiety, talk too fast.
Yeah.
Or intelligence, talk too fast.
Yeah.
What about the person who has that negativity committee beating them up, like your client you mentioned at the airport?
Yep.
But they're more hesitant to speak, or like he was, if I speak, how's it going to be received?
Yep.
What do you do there to build that confidence?
Okay, so again, it's a behavioral response. They're concerned that they're going to be judged in some way. So the idea is that what we want to do, we want to improve the cognitive muscle, the psychological flexibility. What we need to do is we are generally fused with negative thoughts in that situation. So they might be experiencing a somatic or physiological response to that environment or that situation. That might arise in a literal block in the larynx or the vocal tracts, stopping them from speaking. There's a thing called globus pharyngeus, which is a swallowing of the throat, where you're constantly swallowing and the vocal tract is narrowing. And it's not that common, but it's one thing. Just the idea of, there's all the symptoms of high heart rate, short breaths, sweaty palms, narrowing vocal tract, quick voice, all that already before you speak is a somatic response to some sort of anxiety. So the idea is that those somatic responses are literally representing thoughts or feelings that you might be having or you might have had before. So the idea is that you want to diffuse yourself from those cognitive thoughts. And the process that I coach is mindfulness and present moment exercises to strengthen that cognitive muscle, to strengthen that ability to diffuse those thoughts or feelings in the moment, as well as grounding exercises. So there's I'll give you an example. One thing that I teach, which is really powerful, and I only learned this actually a couple of years ago, because I'm constantly learning, as we all are, and I don't feel that I've learned everything, and I don't think I will.
That's a strength.
It's a strength. Hopefully it is, yeah. Sometimes I question that. So I learned something a couple of years ago, which was, this is really amazing. I wish I had told you this at the beginning, because there might be half the listeners that don't hear this because they've dropped off.
Oh no one's dropped off. They're still with us.
Okay, right. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, right, which is our basically our nervous system that controls everything, controls the fight-flight response. If we're nervous, our vagus nerve is connected to various parts of the body, including the diaphragm and including the larynx, right? And it says shut down. It sends a message to shut down. We're not going to speak. We're going to narrow the vocal tract. If we do the opposite, which is the asympathetic nervous system, and tell the vagus nerve by speaking in an elongated way, this is research, this is evidence of this in 3 papers that I've read. So there is efficacy underlying this. If you speak with a long, controlled out breath and you elongate the phrasing as you speak, right? So I'll do it now, right? Taking a breath, and I'm elongating the phrases. All of my vowels are as open as I can make it. I'm using one breath to complete the sentence.
Yeah.
That sends an asympathetic reverse signal back to the vagus nerve to say, it's okay. It's going to be fine. So just practicing that, either in the moment or beforehand or both, really reduces the anxiety.
Interesting. And so if I'm with someone and I have gone into the meeting, the conversation, the walkthrough of something, might be a new manufacturing plant, might be a home, might be whatever. I'm a little bit nervous.
Yep.
Either they're tough people, or normally I work with people I consider friends. And this bond hasn't happened with this person, may never happen. And I'm kind of experiencing fear to speak. Is what you're saying, this elongated breath, did you say as I talk? Was that with, okay. Mm-hmm. Could that be a question versus a statement? Because that might be easier in that environment.
Right. No, absolutely. So definitely, one thing that I say to people that just do not know what to say in that situation because they do feel anxious is ask questions. Absolutely. Yeah. And ask a detailed question, because you know as well as I do that people love speaking about themselves, and they love speaking about their company, and they love speaking about their passions. So when I'm working with people that are doing presentations, if you're nervous at the beginning, start with the Q&A. Don't do the Q&A at the end. Do the Q&A at the beginning. Yeah. Like the little small things like that.
I learned that the hard way. Right. Nobody taught me. I don't think anybody taught me, but I learned that the hard way. If I stand up and I'm nervous, I'll start with a question or I'll start with a story. One of the
stories even better.
Yeah.
Stories even better. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So start with a story or a question, even if it's, look, hands up, who's been here before, whatever it might be, hands up, who has seen my talk before, whatever it might be, who's got the product already, whatever it might be, and just show a video if you want, something just to, there's loads of techniques, they're called grounding techniques. Yeah. So, otherwise you've got the anticipation of knowing in half an hour, you've got to do a Q&A. That's in the back of your mind. All this is in the back of your mind.
Interesting. And, I took Dale Carnegie for speaking or something. I don't know what the title was. 40 years ago, probably.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I took the class.
Oh, did you? Wow.
13 weeks.
Yeah.
3-hour class.
Oh, wow. I didn't know. You didn't tell me this at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah.
50 people in the class.
Yeah.
We had an incredible teacher. It makes all the difference in the world. His name was Alan.
Yeah. Right.
And we had a requirement every class. Mm-hmm. We had to come and we would get the assignment at the end of the class. And then we would everyone had to do a 2-minute talk to build the skill.
Yeah.
And the more personal you made the talk, the more it would grab. And, there was some teaching around. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember that telling a story, telling something, and if it was personal, was very, very powerful. So that's interesting. So if you're going to ask questions, they've got to be good questions. Mm-hmm. You don't want the intelligent or the abrasive person to blow them off.
Yep.
You can kind of prepare those in advance. If you can tell a story, that's great. Mm-hmm. Or bring up a fact that maybe they didn't notice, didn't see.
Yep.
So, very interesting. Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to one thing you said earlier. Mm-hmm. And I'm going back to the music thing again. Mm-hmm. So the jazz musician's guide to speaking with charisma and influence. I saw that in your notes. So
I should write that down. That's
You did.
That's a good book title. I know.
Probably empathy. But this concept of not only you have to be aware of yourself, but if you're playing jazz and the other person's speaking punk rock, there's a disconnect. So how do you pick up on that as quickly as you can? Or maybe you can pick it up on it in advance. I do not know. But talk about that a little bit, because people have different conversational styles or communication styles, don't they?
Yeah, I'm really fascinated with this. Absolutely. And I think there's I think ultimately what we're trying to achieve is a sincerity within within us. I think that's what we're, and I've changed the word from authenticity about 6 months ago to sincerity. A friend of mine who's actually in your business, in the cybersecurity world, who was one of my clients, we've kept in touch, and he commented on one of my LinkedIn posts, I believe, and he mentioned that he prefers the word sincerity, and then we had a conversation about it afterwards. And I think that it's more precise, that definition, in comparison to, and I think it's sort of labeled, everybody's using that as a label these days, aren't they, authenticity? But I believe ultimately what we're looking for is it's a dichotomy between ideally speaking truly from yourself and from your sincere self, regardless of who you're speaking to, whether it's the postman, the gardener, the teacher, your boss, or whoever it might be, to be completely natural and sincere in any moment to anyone is the ideal. I think realistically, however, that we do naturally mimic or copy other people's mannerisms and body language, and we do copy their pace. Because otherwise it's a challenge. If you're particularly slow at speaking and you're talking to someone that's really quick, that's quite a challenge. So you've got to meet in the middle somewhere. I think the ultimate thing would be if you're developing a relationship, is for there to be a balance there. And I think ultimately it's actually a responsibility of both people speaking as much as it is you.
I like that. I actually heard a podcast that Seth Godin was being interviewed recently, and he shot down saying that you're authentic.
Yeah.
So
excellent.
He said the same thing. I do not remember what he said to do instead, but he said the same thing. It's so overused today.
I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. Not that I haven't been honest with you, but what a terrible phrase.
Well, that's why Zig Ziglar says you never say that phrase. You always say to be candid.
Yes, I'm going to be candid. I will use that from now on.
It just means you're revealing a little bit more. But
exactly. I'm just going to be candid with you now. Here we go. So I had a session before, as I mentioned, and the last thing we spoke about is she was talking about what happens if I don't feel like it and I haven't got the energy. I'm tired to do this presentation. And I said, listen, I'm going to be on a podcast in 2 minutes. Right? In 2 minutes. I've had a long day. This is me being very candid, and don't worry. I'd rather have a pizza with the kids and a beer and relax, rather than do this podcast because I'm tired. But I'm a professional, so I'm going to find the energy, I'm passionate about what I do. I'm going to share that with you, right? The irony and the coincidence, in a way, is that I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and I've been in the present moment. And in hindsight, I wish I hadn't said that, but it's a reality how we feel in the moment, the mood that we're in. We've got to find some kind of professionalism to what we do. If I'm recording a video, it's slightly different energy than I would have talking to my kids about how was sports day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you two examples that are not powerful, but they're from my background. One is, there was a movie many years ago, All That Jazz, with Roy Scheider.
Yep.
And it's kind of a downer of a movie, quite frankly, if I remember correctly, but I'll never forget. You can find the clip on YouTube. Every morning he got up, and they were doing drugs and, all kinds of things, prescription drugs at the time, but he had a huge mirror in his bathroom. And, he could have had 3 sinks there. I think he only had 1, but huge mirror. And he would do his whole deal, and he would pop some pills, I think. He would put Visine or whatever in his eyes, and he would look in the mirror and he'd go, "It's showtime, folks." And he could go out with full energy, no matter how hungover or whatever he was. Another example that's more real to me was my dad, who was a wonderful, loving man who grew up with imposter syndrome. He never felt good enough. He had a very rough childhood, but he was a wonderful, loving dad. But I saw him, and I'll never forget it. And he did it with me too. It didn't matter how low he felt. Whenever he greeted someone, it was always, "Hey, how are you? It's really good to see you." He was totally sincere. He basically throttled back or said no to whatever attacks he was experiencing internally, and just focused on his sincere love for whoever it was. And he was sincerely glad to see them. And interesting. It's interesting that she felt that way. Yeah. So, okay, we had...
Sorry, I'm processing what you said, yeah.
So, Jimmy, I think you're doing something very fascinating. I think you have a very unique niche. And if people want to learn more about what you're doing, see what it is, maybe it's a fit for them, maybe it's a fit for somebody they know. I mean, we all probably know somebody who could really work on their communication skills.
Sure. Yeah.
And so where do they go to learn more about you? It'll be in the notes, but for those that are listening while they're driving or working out or whatever it is, they can get it here.
Absolutely, David. Thank you very much. It's jimmycannon.com.
Oh, that's really hard. So...
Well, it's my website. There's loads of links and stuff, and to loads of quizzes and videos and stuff on there. So it's probably the best place, to go. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I encourage people to check it out. We all need to be better communicators. And do you have some videos on the website too?
I have 300 videos on my YouTube channel.
Okay, so we go to YouTube. Yeah. Jimmy Cannon, Jimmy with a Y.
So Jimmy with a Y. Jimmy, I think it's Jimmy Cannon, voice coach or public speaking coach. You'll definitely find me. Yeah, I should do on YouTube, because there is a sports commentator called Jimmy Cannon. I believe in the States, who's since passed, I believe, and I haven't yet ranked him on Google. Okay. That's my.
All right. Well, after this show, come on, audience, everybody's got to YouTube. Help Jimmy outrank this guy.
Exactly. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, Dave. It's been fascinating.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I wish I was in Great Britain and we were sitting somewhere having tea. Well, you can have tea. I'm going to have coffee, and
I might have a beer. I might have a beer.
Well, you can have a beer. I don't do too well with alcohol, so I quit when I was like 32. Yeah, I have no problem with other people who do it well, but that would be fine. I'll have an Arnold Palmer, half tea, half lemonade.
It's a deal.
Yeah, that'd be great. I hope that happens someday.
Yeah, fantastic. And you, David. Thank you.